All right, everybody, we're about to start. How to bring our guest. We change real quick. All right. What's going on, everybody? This is Dr. Elo. We got here Jared Spink from the Podcast.org. And we're about to start. So we want to welcome everybody to the Be.Live show first, right? We want to see where are you watching from? I'm not watching, actually, I'm watching myself, but I am. I am right now in Herndon, Virginia, which is about 30 miles west of Washington, D.C. And Jared, where are you from?
Man, I'm over here in San Diego, California.
Man, I love San Diego, man. 75 degrees almost all year round. So
Nah, man, we had the craziest thunder and lightning storm I've ever seen here last night. It was nuts.
crazy.
Hasn't been that great, but it's not bad
Hey,
right now.
man, I'll take it. San Diego, I'll take it. Katie, Colorado Springs. I actually went to college in Colorado, University of Colorado, over there in Colorado Springs. That's where I got my doctor's from. So I love Colorado. I really love it. Welcome, Katie. All right. So we got about 5 persons viewing right now. So the first thing we want to do is get to know our guest. We want to give, if Jared can give us a small preview of what is his calling, what does he do with his podcast, and his normal day life.
Yeah, man. So as you mentioned, I'm the host of the Hive podcast. It's a well, I think a great podcast. uh,
Indeed.
that I mean, you've been on. I've had the opportunity to meet and talk to content creators from around the world, and just hear their stories and their experiences, in hopes that those stories, those experiences, kind of motivate others to what my shirt says: just start, just get started. I think there's, we psych ourselves out, we hold ourselves back. So the show is just to kind of give you that motivation, that push to get started and get creating. That's probably what I'm best known for, is for the podcast. I have a small YouTube channel, and my
Not
everyday
that
life
small.
is.
It's growing fast. It's growing fast. I'm just saying, but
Thanks, man. And then just everyday life, I run a media company where I focus mainly on real estate media, doing real estate videos and photography and just websites, marketing for real estate agents. It's kind of my bread and butter now. I've kind of it wasn't the thing I wanted to do the most, but it's kind of what like got me through the pandemic business wise. And I've just laid into that, just gone full force into that because it's working. So why mess with it? That's kind of the everyday life, man.
that's amazing, man. And as I always say, if you love doing something, just do it because
Yeah.
it is so hard to find a job that you actually like nowadays. So if you have something that you like about it, at least I don't know, like 50%, 60% of it, there's always gonna be like administrative stuff, which sucks. But
Right. Chasing
you
down
like it,
invoices.
go for it, man.
Yeah,
So,
man.
Jared, how did the Hive podcast start? What was like from where did it start?
Yeah, so I've listened to podcasts kind of since podcasts were a thing forever ago, and I've always loved them. And I've always had this itch to do a podcast, even back to like, man, it dates back to like 2010. I really wanted to start a podcast, and it took me to basically 2020. It took me 10 years to finally pull the trigger. Hence why the show is kind of focusing on why people just need to get
What a
started.
trigger, though. Your
Yeah.
your podcast is really good, and I'm of course I'm a fan. I've been in the podcast as well, which is one of my honorable mentions, which I'm very happy for. But
Yeah.
it is a really good podcast, man.
I appreciate it. So yeah, it kind of dates back to 2010, where I've always wanted to start a podcast, and the podcasts I've had and wanted to do have changed and evolved. And you know the podcast now is nothing compared, like it has nothing to do with what I probably would have started back in 2010, but I absolutely love it. And I'm glad I pulled the trigger. You know what? I had the time. I started my own business. I was self-employed. I had some extra time, when the business is getting going. So I was like, well, I might as well pull the trigger. And of course, watching a ton of YouTube videos on how to podcast and learn how to podcast, and equipment needed. I got hooked onto, Tom Buck's, videos back, like late 2019, I think it was, maybe like early 2020, and was hooked ever since. And that kind of really got me motivated to get the equipment that I needed. And I pulled the trigger, and the show's evolved. Originally it was about entrepreneurs and creators, and um, and it started off like that. But the show's evolved over time, and now it kind of just focuses on creators and the entrepreneurship of being a creator, and not necessarily, you know, entrepreneurs and creators, just the entrepreneurship of creation, which
That's
is kind
pretty
of
cool.
cool. Yeah.
That is amazing. So, to say you started in 2020, so I had a question for you right here. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it started on 2020. So what I love about the podcast is that you bring a lot of good people, like people that you
I
see on
try.
YouTube. I know, you're trying good. You're succeeding. So, and the variety of people that you bring as well. So you bring creators from different types of backgrounds, like Ricky. Man, Ricky has a channel that I love, and not everybody can identify with the channel, of course, but his topics they're really amazing. So, which has been, other than Tom Buck, because he's unique, which has been one of your favorite creators that you brought in?
Oh man, it's hard to choose a favorite. Like, you can't put me on the spot like that.
One of your
Uh,
favorites. I'm not the one.
we'll go with you.
Oh, look at that. Thank you.
Nah, man, they've all been great. I absolutely love it. But if I had to, I mean, if you made me pick one, which I hate to do,
Don't
because
pick one. Don't pick
everybody's
one.
been
Don't pick one.
been
Don't pick one. I
amazing.
want to get in trouble.
And but if I had to like pick an episode that really stands out and kind of was a turning point for me in the show, it would have been Danny Gevirtz. Danny came on. His channel was just starting to pop off. He hadn't moved to Hawaii yet. He was still in Pennsylvania. His channel was just getting traction, and he was just a cool guy. And I approached that episode differently than any other episode I had at the time, where other episodes, and because I was still kind of newer to podcasting, I put a lot of time and prep into my shows, a lot, like research and questions and
You still
prepping the
do. You
guest.
can. It shows.
But with that episode, I had done my research, but I hadn't really prepped too many questions. I hadn't sent Danny over a run a show of questions. It was basically two dudes chatting about what we love,
There we go.
creation, YouTube. And it really came across in the show. It came across that I was more relaxed. He was relaxed. And it was just two guys, two buddies chit chatting. And now I've tried to approach each show like that, where I'll do my research on the guest. But I also don't want to over prep them. I don't want to give them a list of questions. Really, I'll give them the topic I want to tackle.
Mhm.
But because I don't want them to have too much prep too, right? It's, as a podcaster, you're kind of a journalist, especially when you're doing an interview podcast. So you want to get as much of that raw emotion and information as you can during the show, and you can tailor it and tighten it up and post. But yeah, that was a real turning point. So that one was probably my favorite to date, because it's really changed the way I've approached the show, and it's just more conversational and more relaxed now.
I can tell you which one's my favorite. It's not even my own.
Okay.
It's Tom Buck's interview of you on
Oh,
your
okay.
50th
Celebrating
anniversary.
episode 50. That was
Oh my
great. That was
god,
fun.
that was really fun because it turned the tables right there. So you were the interviewee, and you got Tom Buck, which is, I'm a fan of his. You're a fan of his as well. He's
Yeah.
amazing. So doing an interview, and then he has a certain style to get you information,
Yeah,
which is
he's
pretty
got
cool.
a great style. He really does, and so that was really awesome to kind of develop a friendship with him, and bring
Yeah,
him back to guest host that episode, because I had done 50 episodes, and my audience had heard me interview
or 50,
49 other
or
people,
49.
and a little bit of me comes across in the episodes, and you learn a little bit about me. But I thought that was a great chance for the audience to get to know me, who they listen to every week, ask everybody else questions. So that episode was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
it was a marvelous idea. All right. So, why do you prefer using live streaming software advice using any other podcasting software to do your podcast?
Yes. So, the podcast didn't start off with a video version. I actually hadn't been doing I didn't do a video version of the podcast until this year. So, until the January of this year. Before then, I had some in-person interviews, and then it was phone calls, and then it was, the pandemic hit and I was trying to figure out how I wanna do it using Zoom, and like, just the audio quality from Zoom sucked, phone call quality was
Exactly.
horrible. So when you start looking at the live streaming software, it's made like, Zoom's a conferencing app, like, it's not made for live streaming. It's got a lot of powerful tools, but it just didn't fit what I wanted. So live streaming software gave me the opportunity to get way better audio, to be able to get multiple audio tracks. So now I'm using the Rodecaster. So not only do I have the audio tracks, of course, my audio, the guest audio, which is feeding through the computer into the Rodecaster, but I also have the stereo track made from the Rodecaster, and then I get the stereo track from the live streaming software. Plus, that also gives me multi-track as well. So I have all these redundancies. So even if I wasn't going to do video, it just was awesome from the audio aspect and audio first, right? I'm not a video podcast. I'm not a live streaming podcast. I am a podcast that so happens to just record the calls that I have with my guests, and I put that up if that's how you want to consume your podcast. If you want to see the live raw recording of the podcast, which is completely unedited, like the audio is not really edited, it's not chopped up, it's just the raw recording of the episode, and then the audio version, which I put way more time into, is polished. Audio's tightened up. Those pauses are tightened up. The audio is enhanced with EQing and compression. So yeah,
It's a podcast.
I love using live stream software because the audio to get remote audio was the best option. And because like I can have video and high quality video compared to like Zoom, why not just put it out there? So it was kind of just like a natural evolution. So yeah,
Just what? No, so you said that you started with doing Zoom. You started doing. Did you
yeah.
happen to use any of podcasting software as well before?
No, I didn't even bother looking into it. Like I had
Yeah,
already looked at some live streaming software, a few other creators were using, and it kind of just it seemed like it was great, and I didn't need to look anywhere else. Like why complicate things? That fit all my needs. It worked, so just don't overthink it.
exactly. This one, Be.Live has their own. How do they call it? They call it their video editor. You can go in
Mhm.
there and chop it up and take excerpts, and especially for the kind of podcast that you do, that you take little snippets and put it on Instagram.
Yeah, yeah,
That's something that's very achievable here because it gives you the opportunity to just go up in the cloud, chop it up where you want to, and then bring it into your software to do any editing if you wanted to, right? Or any
yeah.
branding, but it already has everything in there. So you can just board it and put it on the different platforms that you want to. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about live streaming software for podcasting is like the way I use it. I don't go live. I can record, right? You can record straight in the software without going live. So that's great. It gives you better video quality for you and your guests to see each other. And like you don't need to do a lot of editing because you can have your overlays and scenes set up in this software. So it really takes away that burden of having to edit the video and post because you already have your overlays. You can have quick keys if you're using a Stream Deck to switch between scenes, or if you're switching between multiple cameras. If you have a camera switcher like the Blackmagic ATEM, it really makes that workflow just super streamlined. Where there really doesn't need to be a lot of editing because you're doing it all live, even if you're not going live, even if you're just recording it live. If that makes sense.
Especially when you're doing a podcast that is organic, it's not scripted. It's
Right.
way better.
Yeah.
So there's my next question, which is funny. You already kind of answered it, but why recording versus live? Why do the podcast on recording instead of doing it live. Like, have you seen Confident Ian Anderson Gray? He does the
Mhm.
Confident podcast, which is online. He does it right there. But why do you prefer to do it separately from going live?
Yeah, so live video is great and it serves a purpose. And I watch a ton of live podcasts that are recorded live and then they basically just repurpose the audio to to podcasting platforms.
They're head
My
thing.
podcast, yeah, my podcast started as an audio first podcast. And I wasn't going to retrain my guests to be or my audience say, okay, we're kind of transitioning. We're going to do this live video thing as the primary thing, and then the audio will be second. To me, a podcast is a podcast. It's audio first. So the audio always comes first. Um, and that doesn't mean that you can't still go live, but I just want everything to kind of hit at the same time. So the audio version of the podcast gets released on Monday, the video version gets released on Monday, and it allows me to be more consistent, right? Because I have a busy schedule. The guests I have on have a busy schedule. And the most important thing about a live stream, if you're going to try to build an audience with a live stream, is consistency. You have to be consistent. And that's with anything, with a podcast, YouTube uploads, even if they're not live. Consistency is key to build a an audience and a loyal audience. And so doing it live, I just wasn't going to be able to have that consistency. It wasn't going to be able to be the same time all the time. And with not doing it live, it gives me the opportunity to batch record. So if I set a day aside where I can get a couple people to record a podcast with me, say on a Tuesday, I can record 2 episodes. Well, cool. I got 2 episodes in the bank instead of having to go live twice that day, which
Smart.
just wouldn't make sense. And then you would have 2 episodes live that same day, but then like they wouldn't come out for the next couple weeks on the audio version. So for me, doing a podcast live just it didn't work for
It
me
didn't
in
work
my
your
workflow.
workflow. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Uche. All right.
Hopefully
So,
that answers that.
yeah, I know, right? So, how different is podcasting vice live streaming in your experience?
I mean, in my experience, it's not too different for me the way I do it because um, every podcast that I do now is recorded and done like we were live, essentially. The whole reason I don't go live, right, is for that consistency and be able to bank episodes and batch record and strategically release the episodes on my upload days. But it's not that different the way I do it, right? Because I have my overlays, I cut between scenes. I It's really not that different for me. The main difference is the fact that I'm just not going live. But I treat it like as soon as we hit record, it's like, hey, welcome to the Hive Podcast, and I get going, man. I'm on as soon as I hit that record button.
How about the engagement with your community? How do you feel about that engagement? Do you
Yeah,
like the
so
engagement?
you'll get more engagement going live,
Yeah,
obviously, right? Because they can actually engage with you
real time.
um real time. But again, for me, for my podcast, that doesn't really work because it takes away from, because I'm an interview focused podcast and not maybe a topic. Though we tackle now, I'm starting to tackle topics with interviews, but it takes away from having the guest on. And because my show is all about guests and and asking them about their journey, it's about them and getting their information across and not necessarily the community, which is kind of weird to say. Like, I love building a community around the podcast, and there has been one about
It is
that's
it is
come
different.
together around it, but it's just different, and it's just not what my show's about. So the way I cultivate community is through Instagram, and
I know.
I do go live on my channel and talk about podcasting equipment and podcasting techniques,
Yes.
and that's a portion where they can start, joining me live and asking questions and be a part of the community. But the podcast itself is about the guest and getting that information across so people can, listen and digest it and apply it however they want to. But because I use Anchor now for my hosting, and they're owned by Spotify, there is a way now to upload questions on the community tab in Anchor, and it shows up on Spotify as well. It only shows up on Spotify, but you
Really?
can do polls now and you can do questions. So if you're listening to the Hive podcast on Spotify or through Anchor, there is a community tab, and now I post questions, and if you want to answer them, you can, and you can take part in that. So that's another way of interacting with your community, which is really cool.
That is amazing. Oh,
Yeah.
somebody brought the mail. That's live stream right there. All right. So, okay. So let's get some questions in from the community. Let's see if we have any questions in. Um, that is really awesome. Actually, the like community tab, and I haven't seen that in Anchor yet. Which
Yeah, I
we're
just saw it when I uploaded my my current episode, and so I went back through the episodes for this season and uploaded questions, and now it's cool. I don't think you're going to get a lot of people using it because not a lot of people know about it, but it's just, hey, take advantage of the opportunities you have out there to
yeah,
interact with your community. So
it's pretty cool.
putting
That's
that out there.
it's pretty new to me actually.
Yeah.
All right. So where can we learn more? I think I have information here, right? So in Instagram, Jared Spink.
Yep.
I know you have the YouTube channel, Jared Spink as well. Which, by the way, whenever you start doing your rigs, I love it.
Yeah. Did a live
um,
stream building a camera rig. That was a lot of
oh,
fun.
dude, that was really good. Actually, it was fun for me. Oh, there we go. So one question here. Actually, let me go back. All right. So, which platform is the easiest to start a podcast on?
I mean, do your research. I'm just gonna say it, like, the easiest to me is Anchor because it's free. You can just start uploading. You can start recording from your phone if you wanted to, straight to Anchor. Um, and I haven't had the need to switch. I mean, I've been podcasting for over a year. I have 65 episodes up. I've been podcasting each and every week for a long time, and I just haven't had the need to go to like Buzzsprout or any of those other, or Libsyn, like those higher end platforms that you have to pay for. And they offer great features, but Anchor works for me. It's free, and I think it really is just, if you want to start hosting a podcast, it's a great way to have it live because it really does just simplify and walk you through the steps to get it out to those other platforms. So I think a lot of people get confused, like, oh, I want my podcast on Apple, and I want it on Spotify, and I want it, on Google Podcasts, or wherever. Your hosting platform takes care of that for you. So you just need to get a good hosting platform. Sometimes you need to go submit your RSS feed manually, but it's super easy to do, and you'll see exactly how to do it once you pick a good podcasting platform. So definitely use one that's made for podcasts. I've had plenty of people ask me, like, "Oh, can I host it on, Squarespace?" I already have a Squarespace account. Don't. Squarespace is made to be a website, not a
Yeah.
hosting platform for your podcast. Go use Anchor. It's free, and it's great.
All right. I got another question from Sai. What advice would you give someone that wants to start a podcast?
Just start.
I know, right?
I know.
Oh,
As corny as that sounds, like,
merch.
yeah,
Anybody?
merch, just start. The hat, just start. It's so easy to get in our heads and overthink, and like, hey, I need a roadcaster, I need a pod mic, I need whatever. Like, I did a little video, and I compared the audio using headphones, Apple headphones that you could
All
use,
that.
and like
Yes.
the audio's fine. It really
It is.
is. It's not
It
that
works.
bad, as long as you have good mic technique and get close to the microphone. So my advice is just start. Figure out, have a plan. I always say just start, but start with a plan. So I'll walk you through what I did first, right? I I had to come up with the idea of what the show was going to be about. All right. So it's going to be an interview podcast. I'm going to interview creators and entrepreneurs. Okay, cool. Who's my list of potential guests? Make a list of potential guests. Start reaching out to them and see who you can get scheduled first, and put a date that you're going to have your first recording so you can hold yourself accountable. And while you're doing that, focus on what you're going to call your podcast. Figure out the name. Get a thumbnail created. Go to Fiverr. There's plenty of options on Fiverr if you just want to outsource it and get a design made for your podcasting thumbnail, or what do they call it? I don't know, it's not called a thumbnail in podcasting, but whatever you want to call it. artwork. Um,
Artwork.
and like, yeah, start having a plan and come up with the list of actions you need to take and start crossing them off. But just get started and get started with that plan. I don't know if there's a better answer than that. If there is, chime in, but just get started, have a plan, and start holding yourself accountable. But use Anchor. Again, I'm not sponsored by Anchor or anything, but it really is just the easiest. It's free. Sign up and upload your first episode. Super easy.
Amazing.
Something to know about when you're uploading episodes, though, a lot of people get confused that um, it doesn't show up in Apple Podcasts immediately. And Apple Podcasts is probably the one uh, listening platform that takes the longest to verify your RSS feed. So, has nothing to do with like it not showing up and there's a problem. It can take a while. And I think I had my trailer, which everybody should start with a trailer. And then I think by my second actual episode, it was finally showing up in Apple Podcasts.
Okay,
So
that kind of
yeah,
works.
yeah,
Actually, put your trailer, start with that, and then once you're on your second or third, you probably have your stuff in there. So
yeah. So I mean, starting with the trailer is so important because it helps you really think about what your show's about. It helps you describe your show very quickly to put your potential audience, and it gives you something out there to start pushing and kind of, marketing and advertising to get people to listen to your show before there's even an episode. That way, there you have somewhat of a small audience by the time your first episode drops. So, having a
I love
trailer is
the
super
hype.
important.
That hype.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, amazing, man. So here you got the information for Jared. You got Instagram, Jared Spink. What's your Instagram for the Hive? It's
Yeah, so okay, hold on, I gotta look that up. I've been
yeah,
asked that before, and I like it's not just the Hive podcast because it
that's what I
wasn't
thought. Because I
wasn't
saw it.
a
It's like, is this the one?
oh man. Of course, my phone's frozen. Here, I'll look it up right now.
Well, you got one more question in the meantime, so that's good. So
I think it's the Hive underscore podcast, right? I should know, I should know this, but yeah, it's the Hive underscore podcast because
okay.
that's what I could get.
All right. So, someone you have yet to interview that you dream to have in your show.
Um, ooh, you know what? I mean, let's be honest, right? Like Peter McKinnon, as corny as that sounds,
Oh,
because
that guy is,
it's
yes, he's
everybody's
amazing.
dream, but like he set the bar. He started this whole thing in motion with the way content creation is now. Like he's the one that like made it all possible for us today. I think like him and a few others, but he really set the example of what success is as a content creator and having the multiple revenue streams and not only making money on content creation, but taking your brand to actual physical products. There's just so many cool things that he's done that it would be great to have him on the show. But I'm always looking for newer content creators and having done the show and having had success and actually getting big names on the show like Sean Cannell and Pat Flynn, who are huge in the content creation field and YouTube. Um, it's not about having big names on the show. It's about having good conversations and good stories that will benefit others. So just because you get a big name and you get this guest you've always wanted on the show, it doesn't necessarily mean it's like awesome for the podcast. I think the information speaks for itself. So I'm always looking for newer content creators or even content creators I haven't come across yet. So I'm always looking, I'm more excited about ones I haven't found yet and getting excited about them than having like this wish list. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, definitely. So, the Hive underscore podcast
Yep.
on now we can
Instagram.
show it. I updated it.
There we go.
All right. So, go check out Jared Spink on Instagram, on the Hive underscore podcast, or on YouTube as Jared Spink. Or you can get all that information on the hivepodcast.org, which you have right
Yep.
here as
The
well.
website.
And that website's full of information in there. So jump on it. And thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy man.
Of
And
course,
I
man.
appreciate you being here. And yeah,
Thanks for reaching out. It's been a lot of fun.
amazing. And remember, guys, to like and share the show so everybody can see it and get this information, which is very, very valuable nowadays. With everybody sitting at home, why not start a podcast and why not use Be.Live to start it? So might as well.
Just get started, y'all. Just
Exactly.
get started.
Look at that shirt. Look at that merch. That's all you need to know. And go check out Jared's podcast as well. His podcast is really amazing. You have you're one of my top 5 podcasts. So
Thanks,
and I
man.
listen to every single one of them. So
Appreciate it.
all right, my friend. Thank you very much. And I'm gonna put real quick here a little screen so people can actually come back. And next Tuesday, I'm not gonna be here. I'm gonna take a small vacation. So I'll be in a cruise ship, hopefully. And the week after, we're gonna have Doc Rock, which is a friend of Jared and I, and we're gonna have an excellent show as well. All right,
All right,
guys.
man.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you the week after.